Hello and welcome everyone to Outdoor Analytics, where we bring you the science behind the hunt. My name is Adam Kilgore, and today we're doing our very first bow review. And for that bow review, I chose the 2018 Hoyt Hyperforce. Before I get into the bow itself, I'd like to say a quick word on our reviews and why they're different from other people's and what you might hope to learn from them. Oftentimes on YouTube and other channels, you're going to see reviews of bows, guns, outfitters, packs, and you're going to hear words like sick, awesome, crazy good, but what you won't hear is the facts behind those. You'll be hard pressed to get the details more in depth than this bow is amazing. My goal is to provide you some analysis behind that so you can make your best choice, best informed choice, what works for you or what might not work for you. Hopefully you learn some more details about the products we review, and if there's any questions, please feel free to ask and I'll do my very best to get back to you. So with that said, I'd like to hop into the bow review. Now the bow, as I said before, that we're reviewing today is the 2018 Hoyt Hyperforce, and it is their aluminum flagship bow for 2018 with a couple twists. And here, before I get into the details, I'll kind of explain what I mean by that. Now Hoyt has been making very good quality bows for literally decades and decades. And about 7-8 years ago, they started coming out with their carbon line. Now the Hoyt carbon line, although they weren't the first company to produce carbon bows, they were the first to market it in the way they did and really advance the technology. And the advancements were to be lighter weight, less shock and vibration because of the carbon, less heat transfer, meaning the carbon's warmer to the touch in cold weather, and quieter. And those were the things that were really making the bow justify the higher cost of the carbon riser. Now every year since they started that, Hoyt made a carbon flagship and an aluminum flagship. And what that meant was the cams, the limbs, the pockets were usually all the same, with the difference being the riser material, one being aluminum and one being carbon. Now last year, 2017 bow year, Hoyt had some issues getting the carbon to market. Whatever those issues were, instead of rushing to bring out a new model, Hoyt decided to carry over the carbon from 2016. In doing so, they made minimal changes as well to the aluminum bow. So you had the Defiant in 2016, the Pro Defiant in 2017. While the riser looked awesome, it was some minor upgrades and changes, and that was it. Everything else was carried over. What I find interesting in this is that for years you had the Hoyt talking heads, the gurus, the bow insiders exclaim the virtues of carbon, 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 and that is what they pushed. And that makes sense because that's Hoyt's biggest profit maker and what they wanted to push as well. So you heard everybody say how carbon was the way to go, except for last year. So the carbon bow was a carryover, meaning they weren't, if you went out and bought a 16, why would you go out and buy a 17? The aluminum bow was different, although very slightly different, but then all of a sudden you saw a lot of people say, hey, we're going to use the aluminum version this year. Again, that makes sense. That's just part of the marketing stuff that needs to go into any outdoor manufacturer's way they promote the product. So 2018 rolls around and the Hoyt announces their new lineup, and the lineup has quite a bit of changes to it. So the lineup is new, pretty much new everything. New risers, new cams, new limbs, new pockets, new grip. Pretty much everything is new on both the carbon and the aluminum. Now, why I chose the bow I have here in my lap, the Hyperforce over the carbon, is for a couple reasons, and I'll quickly go into those. Now, the carbon bow prices have continually raised throughout the years, as has the aluminum, but the carbon started higher, and so the initial buy-in to that carbon, be it 2010 or 2018, is a higher bite out of the budget. Specifically, the 2018 carbons are anywhere from $1,600 to $1,700. Now for that price, I looked around and you can get into a really nice semi-custom rifle. What you'll get with that semi-custom rifle is a gun that won't change from year to year, meaning there won't be a new model next year and the year after and the year after. It'll shoot the same 300 Winchester mag year after year after year. The value of that rifle will stay the same or go up each year as the cost of rifles go up. That rifle will hold on to its value. Whereas maybe a lot of people don't know this, a bow loses about 30% of its value the minute you walk out of the shop, and about 50% of its value the minute you walk out a year later. For those that don't understand this, go on to sites like Archery Talk, and you can find last year's bows for about 50% off. So that initial buy-in, the initial cost of the carbon bows is starting to become pretty prohibitive for a lot of people, myself included, when you're talking the cost of a nice rifle, a very nice rifle, or an average rifle in a scope. The second thing is Hoyt and all carbon bow manufacturers have had issues getting finishes to stick on the carbon. Be that solid colors or camo, the pattern stretches, it doesn't adhere as well, and you very quickly start to see wear. Now the wear on the bow doesn't necessarily detract from its shooting ability or how it performs, but when you're paying for $1,600 or more for a bow, I would feel consumers would want a bow that looks good and keeps looking good year after year. The wear is just very quickly accumulates on those bows, and if that doesn't matter to you, great. I'd say that becomes a non-issue. But if it does, especially if you go to sell that bow in 2, 3, 4 years, and now because of all the finish wear, it's not worth 50 or 40%, it's worth 10% of what you pay, then it really becomes an issue. The other factors of the carbon are the weight. Well, this year, the weight of the Hoyt bows have gone up to right around 4 pounds, or even a little over for the carbon, depending on the carbon you want. Well, that's right in the wheelhouse of most aluminum flagship bow weights. So the weight saving isn't there, so a huge part of why you buy carbon is now gone. The warmth to the touch, well, that's still there, and carbon will always be better or feel better than aluminum when you grab it in cold weather. The only factor there comes down to whether or not you are going to hold on to your bow enough to notice that and for it to affect your shot in cold weather. Now, if you're hunting in a blind or a tree stand, are you going to have a hold of that bow the whole time? If you are, then maybe your hand will get cold. If it's going to be on a hook or a stand, then you probably won't notice it. And then I've heard the argument from guys out west that say, well, I don't hunt in a tree stand. I hike with my bow in my hand at all times. And that may affect the temperature of your hand as well. But if you're hiking and moving around quite a bit, your body, the blood flow is going to be going, the circulation's better. And I don't think the heat, I think your body will raise its temperature from the exertion to kind of counter that coldness. But that's an individual thing, and you have to understand or feel whether or not the additional $500 to $600 buy-in is worth it for you. The other thing is the vibration and the strength of the riser. Now, it is true that carbon, per the same way, is going to be stronger than aluminum, but I spoke to a buddy about this. We had a pretty good conversation, and the advancement in manufacturing technologies over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years have really made aluminum bows, I don't know if you can say they're as strong as carbon, but I don't know if you'd ever notice the difference in that strength. So having said all that, one, that's why I chose personally the aluminum bow for 2018. But more importantly, it's up to you whether or not you choose the carbon or the aluminum bow for 2018. The carbon bow is lighter than the 2018 aluminum bow, still in Hoyt's line. It shoots just as fast, shoots just as well, and it is a fantastic bow. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from buying the carbon bow. They are awesome bows. They are top of the line, except for the finish issues. But those bows are amazing bows, and they will perform extremely well for you in any environment or terrain condition you want. It's just whether or not that carbon advantage is enough to offset the additional money. And that's something you have to decide. So having said all that, let's get right into this bow that I'm holding in my lap that I've been holding down there, and that is the 2018 Hoyt Hyperforce. Now this bow, this year in 2018, comes in one configuration, meaning that in the past, both the carbon and the aluminum bow would come in long versions, short versions, and a turbo version. This year, Hoyt wanted to differentiate the lines between the carbon, which is they entitled the Red Works, and the aluminum, and really kind of make that carbon bow their standout, new advancements, new technology bow, where they bring that to you, that showcase that, and make that their premier flagship. And in doing so, they offer that in the 32-inch, the 35-inch, and a turbo model, whereas the aluminum version is just offered in the regular cam, which is an all-new cam this year for both the carbon and the aluminum. So this bow, the ZT or the Hyperforce, the Hoyt Hyperforce, comes with a brand new cam. This is the ZT Hyper Cam. It is an awesome cam. It offers 85% let off from the factory, which I'm a big fan of. You will hear a lot of guys talk about how lower let off, more holding weight is great for targets. I might agree, I might not agree with that, but for hunting, for cold weather, here in Iowa, November, 30 degrees out, I like high let off, and this is 85% let off. Lets you sit back there in the valley, lets you get comfortable, lets you wait on a deer if it comes walking in the mountains, it lets you wait on an elk come walking. Hunting turkey, allows you that turkey to come in and you draw earlier and hold it. These cams are awesome. This bow is producing 340 feet per second ATA speed.